The idea of getting investor funding for your business from Silicon Valley, private equity, or even the dream of taking your business public can be a really exciting thing. And I've talked to a number of folks that we've helped here at Nomad Capitalist over the years who have had exactly those situations. But when you're going offshore to legally reduce the amount of tax you pay in your business, there's a few special considerations that startups and future unicorns need to keep in mind. Hey guys, I'm Andrew Henderson. If you want to learn more about Nomad Capitalist and how we help entrepreneurs and investors go where they're treated best, go to nomadcapitalist.com. Now, imagine you've got a startup company and you have been raising money from investors, or you plan to raise money from investors. I've seen this situation play out a number of times with people that we've helped. Now, I don't have a lot of personal experience with this. I've started a number of businesses, first in the United States, now overseas. I've never taken any loans, any investments, any startup capital, but I've learned as we've gone through this process, and here's the challenge that you're going to face if you want to take investors, is that your investors, or potentially your business partners, other people that share equity or have warrants or whatever the case may be, they may not entirely be on the same page with your offshore tax plans. Now, if you have a business that you own 100%, taking your business offshore and legally reducing your tax rate to as low as zero is relatively straightforward. Even Americans can do this because you're totally in the driver's seat, okay? And so I often talk about my tax-free quadrant or my tax-friendly quadrant. And so if you are in a business that you own 100% of, you can check all four of the boxes in that quadrant yourself. You don't need to ask anyone else. If you have a business partner, sometimes they'll see, two people who are business partners together. It's a lot easier if you both have the same goals of going offshore. You both want to live overseas and run the business overseas, and even better, hire people overseas if you're hiring staff. That is also relatively straightforward as well. Where it becomes difficult is when one business partner wants to stay in the US or stay in Australia and the other one wants to move offshore. It becomes a lot more difficult to plan for that, and more difficult planning means more expense, which means you're probably less likely to do it, especially if you've got a small business that isn't turning a lot of profit yet. But one step beyond that, or maybe 10 steps beyond that, is when you're raising money from investors. And so what I've seen is people who are raising money, especially in the United States, those investors are in the United States. Obviously a big culture of investing in startups in the US. And what they're familiar with is what they're familiar with. They have their kind of tried and true strategies. They like their Delaware C Corps. They like certain kind of legal strategies and structures. And because most people aren't thinking about how to reduce their taxes as a way to put more money back into their business, most of their companies are just domestically in the marketplace and just focused on building revenue rather than cutting costs. And so everyone's cool with that except perhaps you, the startup, the founder who wants to go offshore because you don't think paying 40 or 50% tax is the way to grow your business. And so what I've seen is you can easily be at odds with your investors. I had one gentleman who came to us a while back and he had not started to raise money yet, but people were interested. And so for him, it was a discussion of, I could renounce my citizenship, but then how do I come back to the US to meet with my potential investors? Or I can get the investors, but then they're going to challenge me in the structure. And so ultimately, there's just so many decisions, and he just couldn't really make a decision as to where he wanted to go with it. It just got stuck. And if he goes out and raises the money, now he's going to have a much harder time reducing his taxes going forward because he's already set the valuation for his company. So now he's already got a certain amount of capital gains or business value that's going to have to be taxed in the future. He missed his chance to get out of the situation and basically not have a big tax event. And so if you're going to get investors, you want to ask them, are they okay with you running the business from overseas? Now, the world, in my opinion, is going international. I mean, so many companies are hiring overseas now. Obviously, it's been a widely discussed topic for decades now about a lot of tech companies hiring in India and hiring in the Philippines. Now you've got a lot of startups and a lot of companies that we work with who are hiring all over the world, whether it's in Southeast Asia, whether it's in Eastern Europe, sometimes in South America. even in Western Europe now, right? I mean, people are hiring all over the world. And companies have structures all over the world, and there are startups all over the world. But if your investors aren't on the same page with that, if they just want to put you into the normal ecosystem that they live in, and they're not open to even adding additional structures, and in one case we had, it was, okay, you can have your normal investor legal structure, but let us add another structure on top, and that'll limit the taxes for everyone, both the investors and for the founder himself, who will be overseas. And the investors just seemed kind of lukewarm, and the deal never really happened. And so, it's like anything where there are too many cooks in the kitchen. Obviously, when you run your own business, you call the shots. And so therefore you can do whatever you want, and you can make sure that you get things done. You can make sure you move the company offshore. Again, if you have two partners or even more, but the fewer the better generally, and you guys agree and you say, hey, let's all move to wherever together and let's run the company from there together and we're on the same page, that also is cool. But you have to make sure the people in your business are in agreement or at least okay with it. Okay? Investors may not need to follow you offshore. You can take money from certain places without them having to live the lifestyle that you want to lead as a nomad capitalist, but they need to be okay with the structure. So my big lesson is, if you have partners, if you're handing out equity, including, by the way, to employees, early employees, that can be an issue and has been an issue at times, or if you're raising capital, you want to understand how that's going to affect your ability to go offshore. And sometimes I've literally seen people have to choose, do I want to get my company to go public in the future? Or do I want to go down that track? Or do I want to go down the track of having a very strong, privately owned company that has a very low tax rate, that's diversified globally? Either one is okay. I've chosen my entire life the second route. Privately owned companies, I maintain control, and we just get to keep all of our own money. But that's the decision that you have to make. I'm not saying that you can't have both. We've certainly dealt with both investors and entrepreneurs on both sides of the coin. And there are some advantages to be had if you don't want to make that many concessions, but it's going to be very difficult. And so if you're a startup and you're thinking of going offshore, ask yourself some of those questions and go from there. How can Nomad Capitalist help you? 4 ways. Number 1, subscribe to our channel and click the notification bell to make sure you get our new video every day. Number 2, get a copy of Nomad Capitalist, the book. You'll learn a lot of my personal experiences over a dozen years of studying this stuff, as well as exactly some of the strategies that you can use to build your Nomad Capitalist plan. Number 3, if you're not sure where to start, but you want to come and learn from my team and I, you want to come and mingle with like-minded people, learn more about our live conference, Nomad Capitalist Live. It's coming up soon. And number 4, if you want some help right now because you've got a burning issue, you need something solved, you want to lower your taxes, get a second passport, or build the Nomad Capitalist lifestyle of your dreams, go to nomadcapitalist.com and click on Become a Client.